identified easily. And therefore, they keep perpetuating. They keep growing inside until they go out of hand and go out of control. Because they are not observable, they are difficult to treat and diagnose. And often people who are suffering from these diseases don't themselves know that they have this disease. The other thing important to know about these diseases is that these diseases are acquired as we grow up, and we don't even realize them. If I can give you a crude example, if a family does not watch their diet and what they eat and what they put in their body, and if the family at large is used to eating unhealthy food, diet that causes all kinds of medical problems, and they don't realize it until one or the other members of the family begins to show symptoms of them. For example, high blood sugar, for example, heart problems, for example, stomach problems, etc., etc., etc. And then when you go to the doctor says, well, tell me what you eat. And you tell them, says, no, you got to stop all these. You can't eat all these things. This is harmful to your body. Similarly, these diseases come about. We were talking about not being careful about where your gaze goes or what you watch. If you look at our Muslim communities at large, of course, I'm focusing on the Muslim communities because that's what we're dealing with. If all of you were not Muslims, then this would not be an issue. If all of us were not Muslims, then this would not be an issue. Khalas, period. This would all be normal. But because we are a Muslim, it is an issue. Because we are supposed to be living our life according to the guidance of Allah subhanahu wa ta'ala and prepare for the life hereafter and be held accountable for the life we lived. That's why it becomes an issue for us. So now then, let me go back. In our Muslim societies and communities and families, unfortunately, we do not learn our deen properly. We don't learn all the commandments of Allah subhanahu wa ta'ala, what Allah is asked to do, not do, why, what is the reason for it. We don't generally pay attention to those kinds of things. Of course, we learn to recite Quran, alhamdulillah. We make an effort to have our kids make hafz of Quran, memorize the Quran, alhamdulillah, alameen. We teach them how to pray. We teach them the fiqh of prayer and making wudu and how to pray and what breaks the wudu and what breaks the salah, etc. We do those things. But that's about all we do. That's about all we do. We don't get into if Allah has asked us to do this besides the ibadat. Besides the ibadat and worships, if Allah has asked to do this or asked us not to do this, we don't pay attention to it. For example, I mentioned the verse of the Quran from Surah An-Nur yesterday, but Allah advises man to keep their gaze down. In the same surah, as I mentioned last time, a day before yesterday, the following verses of Surah Nur also lists all kinds of instructions for women folks. But who pays attention to it? So looking at na-mahram women, looking at videos and pictures and movies and stuff where these haram things are going on all the time is commonplace in our homes. Am I right? In our families, in our extended families, people have no conception of who it is okay to look at, who it is not okay to look at between the men and women folks. We just say, well, this, she's family, or he's family. It's just not, the family can be very large extended families. And all of them, if they are not mahram to you, you are prohibited to look at them. Am I right or wrong about this? But we don't care really. As a matter of fact, in this day and age, if this is mentioned that you should not be doing it, they probably say, come on, why are you making a big deal of it? We are all brothers and sisters here. As I mentioned, these eyes and these ears are our major sources of information. Whatever information these two senses bring to us, our entire body reacts to it. Allah subhanahu wa ta'ala has placed a natural attractiveness between men and women. And this attractiveness between the two genders is throughout His creation, not just humans. And Allah has given each of the creation, the two genders, different beauties to attract each other. And the purpose of the attraction, singularly, please understand this, the purpose of the attraction, singularly, is for the male to be attracted to the female to do what? To make babies. Single purpose of that attraction. Because if that attraction was not there, the races will be gone. Also, at the same time, Allah subhanahu wa ta'ala placed in us different needs. Biological needs, physiological needs, love needs, etc., etc., etc. And we want those as well. And those needs keep changing, and who we want it from keeps changing as well. Please understand everything I'm trying to tell you, because it's so important that you understand every aspect of it so that you can know how to prevent this and how to treat this. So as the child grows, if in the home life, if in the family life, there are no restrictions. People can sit together, have parties, they're sitting watching TVs, they're sitting, either you're watching Arabic movies or English movies, doesn't matter. All the movies present the same kinds of challenges. They're listening to the music, they're sharing the music with each other, sharing the pictures with each other. It's commonplace. What happens as a result? This is true in our cultural gatherings as well, in our family gatherings as well. Anywhere you go, these opportunities are all there, and nobody minds it. Unfortunately, what happens as a result? These things become normalized. We no longer see anything wrong with it. It's all normalized. It's okay. When it becomes okay, when something wrong becomes okay, it stops being wrong for you. Khalas. Please understand. If something becomes okay for you, it stops being wrong. So look at the society at large. Lots of things which obviously were considered not too long ago wrong, not acceptable. It's a disease, it's a perversion, it's a problem. No, not acceptable. Are all of a sudden acceptable. When non-acceptable wrong are made to be acceptable in one way or the other, they stop being wrong. Which is why this disease keeps perpetuating itself. Now, the child grows up. This young man sitting in front of me, these young men sitting in front of me, they're still small. They may be going to high schools and colleges and universities, am I right? And they all want to get married. They all want to have a woman to be with. Simple as that. That's life, or what life is all about. As soon as they get into their teenage, and unfortunately nowadays, as soon as they become 9, 10 years old, and as soon as one of their friends introduce them to these kinds of things, their mind goes. Children prematurely these days become too much sexually aware. And don't for a minute think that it doesn't do anything to them. This is not the time to fool ourselves, because the consequences are great, big. As soon as a child, as young as 6, 7 years old, is introduced to these things, the curiosity takes over. And keeps getting on and I know this because I deal with these cases all the time. So children are becoming more sexually developed and aware in a very young age. Now these eyes are looking for these things. They want to look at these things. They want to find excuses to do these things. One of the excuses, everybody does it. Nothing wrong with it. It's okay. All my friends do it. Even my parents do it. My uncle does it. It's not uncommon. It's very common. So what happens is, all of these things have become normalized. You know, when you figure out that something is majorly wrong and something needs to be done, is when something pretty bad has already occurred. When a child comes home, when a teenager comes home, and the father looks at his, or mother ends up looking at the phone, his cell phone, and finds all these pictures, and chatting with girls, with all kinds of language being spoken in this. And then they say, what happened here? What went wrong here? It's then we realize the consequences of this disease of not watching this gaze and what they're going to look at. As I said, these issues are in every home. Illa mashallah. Illa mashallah. I'm sure there are very good exceptions as well. But they're very prevalent among young and old. And many don't think of it as anything wrong until things really go bad. It has to be prevented. I can't go into the gory details of all of this. I told you that there's a natural attraction between men and women, and then when a young boy, young girl comes to that stage, when they're looking for that kind of attention, there are all kinds of free choices out there to find it. Am I right? There's no restriction. As a matter of fact, if you don't look for it, there's something wrong with you. So they are going to be attracted. When they're going to be attracted, what's going to happen? They are going to establish contact and relationships. And they are going to become emotionally involved. And they won't notice, they won't care if who they are falling in love with is a Muslim or not. At that point, they won't care if they're Muslim or not. They are now stuck. And what they find out later, that the only thing that stands in their way to get what they want is their faith. I told you last time that this disease is so that if it is not controlled, it would take your faith away from you. You would lose your faith. So they find out, these young sisters and the guys find out, the only thing standing in my way are my parents and my religion. And because they want this person so bad that they're ready to give them up. This is how dangerous this thing is. Now then, you know where the roots of these are. You know where and how it comes. And I pray to God, I pray to Allah subhanahu wa ta'ala that you also know that we do need to do something about it. We can't just close our eyes and say, it's going to be okay. My kids are okay. I would strongly recommend that those of you who are here and the friends that you know, that you advise them to study some specific verses of Quran as a family about this disease and about how what Allah is suggesting about it, so that you become educated yourself, so that you educate your children, your wife, your husband about this, so that you can understand the complexity and the severity of this, and so that you choose to live by it. I'm just going to list these verses. If you have something to note, jot down. These are Surah Nur, verses 30 to 31. Surah Nur, verses 30 to 31. And verses 58 to 61, same surah, An-Nur. 30 to 31, 58 to 61. Then you go to Surah Ahzab. Al-Ahzab, verses number 32 to 35. And the last 4 lines of verse number 53. Also verses 59 to 62 of Surah Al-Ahzab. Surah Al-Ma'idah, verse 5. Surah Al-Baqarah, verse 211. Just a few verses. All of those verses specifically deal with this disease and what to do and what not to do. Please read it. Prevention is better than treatment. See, mashallah, we have young children still at home. All the families, mashallah, masjid, lots of people bring their young children with them. They're still at an age where you can prevent them going into that direction. So please study that. Now then, we have to balance all of this with the reality that we live in as well. As I mentioned yesterday, it has become almost impossible to avert our eyes from haram these days, to avert our gaze, to not look at women completely when we are out. And it is true around the world, unfortunately. Am I right? It is in your face, khalas. You cannot go anywhere without having to deal with one woman or the other, one sister or the other, because they are working most of these places. And we have to deal with them. If you have offices, your secretary, your business, you have your secretaries who are women. You need to talk to them. So what are we going to do? It's a legitimate question. And there is a legitimate answer to it as well. Rasulullah sallallahu alaihi wasallam has advised us that when you look at somebody unintentionally, that gaze is forgiven. But if you choose to look at this person again intentionally, now that you would have to be accountable for. So principle. I'm going to the bank, I'm going to the store, I have to go through the checkout. There's sisters everywhere. I know I have to talk to her. I know that I may have to look at her as well. I may look at her and say, here, and then put my gaze down and not keep looking at her. That's in my choice. That's in my control. Am I right? That is in my control. I can look at her, I can do what I need to do, and then I put my gaze down. If I need to look at her again, I put my gaze down. I continuously watch my gaze, and in my heart, I continuously recite astaghfirullah, astaghfirullah, astaghfirullah. Make sense? Allah subhanahu wa ta'ala is not unjust. Allah subhanahu wa ta'ala knows our circumstances, the situations we live in, and the problems we have, and where we have control and where we don't have control. Allah subhanahu wa ta'ala knows all of this, and He is not unjust. But we need to make sure that we are not fooling ourselves and giving excuses to ourselves. Lots of young people who are of marrying age are saying, well, you know what, Dr. Sadiq, I have to look at these pictures. I have to go to these websites because I have to find somebody to marry. How I'm going to find them? So I have to go to these sites. So there are all kinds of excuses. Given, true, that these days, because where we live, we don't have the community connections where people can be introduced to each other about, who is available, who is not available, etc. So we end up going to these things. That's why there are literally hundreds of matrimonial sites. Am I right? Literally hundreds of them. People go to those sites. But watch your niyyah. Wallahi lazim. Watch your intention. Because you cannot hide your true intention from Allah subhanahu wa ta'ala. Allah is forgiving, no doubt about it. But if your intention is correct, if you have ikhlas in your intention, Allah will forgive it. But if you don't, then don't expect any forgiveness from Allah subhanahu wa ta'ala. Khair. So we covered prevention, and we covered what to do when we can't help it. Now let's go to the treatment. As I said, one of the major problems in treating these diseases is because many people themselves are not aware of them and will not accept them. Khalas. How many people present here, for example, or anywhere, will be able to say, you know what, even to himself, I have this problem. Wallahi lazim, if any one of you sitting here right now is able to say to himself, Wallahi, I have that problem. Or my son has this problem, I know. Or so-and-so, I know, and I have this problem too. If you are able to do this, Barakallah fi. Congratulations. That is the first step in the treatment of this disease. Admitting, I have this problem. If you don't admit, nothing is going to change. Number one, if you really want to treat yourself and get out of this disease, this suffering, which is going to cause you suffering till the day you die, then you need to admit, I have that problem. And stop making excuses. If you are sincere to want to cure it, please check your intention. You see, like I told you, these diseases have, why they exist is because the nafs gets pleasure out of it. We get a pleasure out of it. That's why we have them. So if you admit that I have this disease, and if you don't make an excuse for it, then you ask yourself, am I willing to give up this pleasure? Now I know that this is a disease. It would lead me to disaster in my personal life, my family life, my life hereafter. I know that. But am I willing to give up this pleasure? It's a very tough question. I'm going to give you a quick case example. I'm working right now with the case. This couple has been married now for about 4 years. They also have a daughter now, about a year old. The man has been suffering from this disease. He said, the reason I know this because they came to me for help, because they're having issues between the husband and wife. He said, the reason I married my wife was so that she can help me get over this disease, so that she can help me get rid of this intense desire to want to look at these things. And he said, but I just can't do it. Every time I'm stressed, every time I'm frustrated, I automatically go do these things. I just can't stop. Because I have an inner conflict in myself, he says. This is a real case. He says, I have an inner conflict in myself. I want to be good. Wallahi azim, I want to be good. But at the same time, I enjoy this so much that I can't give it up either. This is what we call psychologists an inner conflict. These inner conflicts between wanting good and enjoying the bad are so severe and can get so severe that can make your life hell, literally, without actually going there. So, point number 3, can you sincerely make a commitment that you can now deprive your nafs of this pleasure and you're going to be okay with this? That's going to take time. These diseases cannot be cured like taking a pill and you're okay. It's a time-consuming process to heal. Self-reflect. Think about, how did I end up with this? When did it all start? Why am I here right now? Why am I in this situation? Why am I in this dilemma right now? Find out, how did it start? And how did it progress? And how far it has gone right now? And why now, if you have been doing this since you were 10 years old or 15 years old, why now are you being bothered by it? Why is it making it uncomfortable for you now? What other problems is it causing for you now? And this is a very key question. When I told this guy, I says, look, bro, I know your problem and I sympathize with you. I know what you're struggling with. I know it's a very difficult struggle. And it is even more difficult for your wife because she knows it. But look, you have a choice. And please underline this word choice. It's a very important word in the treatment of this disease. I said, brother, you have a choice. He said, what choice? I said, look, two of them I can point out to you right now. Number one, if you don't choose to stop this, you would lose your wife and your daughter because she has it up to here with you. She won't take it for more. She's going to take her daughter and go. You have a choice. What do you want to do? I said, number two choice. I said, when you're frustrated, when you're stressed, and you go to look at these haram things, do you do it in front of your wife? He says, of course not. I said, You don't do it in front of your wife? No. You do it in front of with your friends? Well, no. You do it in front of anyone that anybody can watch you? No. So I said, aren't you making some choices here? You are choosing to do it in a safe place where you won't get caught. Am I right? If you have a choice to do it in a place where you don't get caught, then don't you know Allah is watching you all the time? And Allah subhanahu wa ta'ala is watching you all the time. Don't you even have even as much fear of your wife watching you as Allah watching you? You know what this treatment does, brothers? It changes your way of thinking. That's what this treatment does. It doesn't give you pills to change yourself. It attacks your hearts and mind and changes it. It changes your outlook on life and your death and the life hereafter and your relationships. This treatment changes your outlook as to how you look at things. I said, if you have a choice to do it, you can choose not to do it. Nobody's forcing you to do it. You think that you can't help yourself, but don't fool yourself. That's an excuse. If you're choosing to do it and go out of your way to make sure you don't get caught, then you can choose not to do it so that Allah will not catch you. He sat back and he says, Wallahi, that makes sense. Alhamdulillah. Alhamdulillah, if it makes sense. Can you practice it? So I'll try. Okay, good enough. That's all you can do. If you make a commitment that I've had this with this, I can't lose my wife and my child. I love them too much. I won't find a woman like this who would be willing to put up somebody like me for this long. I don't want to lose her. I don't want to lose my child. I don't want to sacrifice them for the love of this thing. If you keep reminding yourself of that and sincerely want to get over this, then Allah would give you the strength to be able to control this desire. So he said, okay, so how do I do it? What do I have to do? I says, I'm going to give you the prescription. How are you going to do it? This is number one. What you're listening from me right now, what you're learning from me right now, as soon as you finish this session with me, take out your pen and paper and make notes of everything you learned, so that you don't forget what you learned today. So that you don't forget what you need to do different. You make notes in your own words. And I tell them, tell me what you heard me say. What did you learn today from me? What did you know? What do you need to do differently? Tell me, what did you learn? So I know that they got it. So make notes. Make sure that every morning after you get up, before you begin your day, you read those notes. Because they need to be fresh in your mind. Otherwise, as I mentioned last time, we are creatures of habit. We keep falling back to the same things over and over again. I want you to read these notes every morning and make a dua to Allah subhanahu wa ta'ala to give you the strength to live by them. He said, okay, I'll do that. I said, number two, this thing is not going to automatically change for you. You are still going to get urges. You will get urges. I know that. It's not just going to disappear. He says, yeah, I know, but that's what I'm worried about. I said, yeah, I know. So don't worry about it. So what do I do when I have an urge? I said, very simple. You say, if I'm going to do it, I'm going to do it in front of my wife. You make that decision. If I'm going to do it, I'm going to do it with my wife. And it will keep you from not doing it. You see, this is therapy is all about. If I told him, if you wish to do it, if you feel the urge to do it, know that Allah is watching me, will not have stopped him that much. Because he can't see Allah. He can't see Allah watching him. But if I get him to get his wife to see him, he's going to feel ashamed. That's what this treatment is all about. So I said, do this. And see how many times you end up doing it. And starting today, you make yourself a progress report so that you can see your own progress. At the end of the day, you rate yourself. Today I followed through everything that I learned. Did I slip? Or did I not slip? If a day goes by and you did not slip, you did not look at haram things, give yourself a rating of 10. Give yourself a pat on the back. Good job. Start the next day. The first day, if you didn't slip, you gave yourself a rating of 10. Now you know you are in control. Now you know you're in control and you can stop it. Start the next day and keep rating yourself. And if you sometimes slip, don't get depressed and don't get, hey, I go again. Because it's likely that you're going to slip. As soon as you slip, I want you to go make wudu and pray 2 rakats of tawbah. Every time you slip, it's okay, fine. But requirement is, every time you slip, you have to go make wudu and pray 2 rakah salah of tawbah. And make dua to Allah to give you steadfastness not to slip again. Follow it. See you in 2 weeks. So my dear brothers, this is the treatment for this disease. I've spoken for longer than I should, but I wanted to finish this topic for today so that we don't continue again tomorrow. Any questions before I go? Yeah.
I was just wondering, can you explain nafs in English?
Desires, basically. Yeah. It's all kinds of desires. Nafs is the seat of all kinds of desires. Okay? Any other questions? Does it make sense? Alhamdulillah. So this is about this disease and the treatment of disease. I have one more day before my turn is over, maybe two. But the next, if I have time and I have a turn or two, I would like to talk about the second major disease, which is anger management, because that is a huge issue in our communities. So until inshallah tomorrow, I would inshallah make dua for me, and may I make dua for you that Allah subhanahu wa ta'ala make this beneficial for all of us and protect us from all these diseases of fraud and corruption, inshallah. Assalamu alaikum wa rahmatullahi wa barakatuh.